This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Baruchim haba and welcome everyone to a special edition of All Parsha on Parshas Eikev, the Baal Haturim on Parshas Eikev. I would like to share with you today 12 offerings from the Baal Haturim on Parshas Eikev. And away we go. Perek Zayin Pasuk Yud Beis. The Parsha begins, V'haya Eikev Tishma'on. Interestingly, Parshas Va'aschanan, the previous Parsha, ends with the word Asher Anochi Mitzavcha Hayoim La'asoisam. Hayoim La'asoisam. Today, to perform the mitzvahs. Upon which the Gemara in Erevin darshans, Hayoim La'asoisam. Today we do the mitzvahs, but the schar is Lamachar. Ulamachar L'kabel scharam. Therefore, says the Baal Haturim, Hayoim La'asoisam. Today you do the mitzvahs. You want the reward? V'haya Eikev. That's in the heel, that's in the end. That's Ulamachar L'kabel scharam. That's the juxtaposition of Eikev to the end of Va'eschanan. Hayoim La'asoisam. Perek Zayin Pasuk Yud Gimel. The next Pasuk, also, we have a very interesting observation. Va'ahevacha, and I will love you. That is in the merit of Avraham, who is called Avraham Oihavi, as the Navi Yeshaya says. Uveirachecha, and I will bless you in the schus of Yitzchak. As the pasuk says by Yitzchak, Vayevarch Elokim es Yitzchak. V'hirbecha, I will multiply you, as Yaakov Avinu was blessed. Pray uraveh. So these three adjectives, these three descriptions, are in the merit of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Each description is found by one of the avos. Ahava is found by Avram. Baruch is found by Yitzchak, and Rava, Pray uraveh, is found by Yaakov Avinu. Perek Zayin, Pasuk Yadalad. We go to the next Pasuk. Baruch tihiyeh mikol ha'amim, lo yihiyeh v'cha akar v'akara uviv hemtecha. Now, this Pasuk, Baruch tihiyeh mikol ha'amim, it begins with a beis, it ends with a chaf, indicating that in the schus of the Torah, which was taught with 22 letters of the alphabet, you will be blessed. Baruch tiyeh mikol ha'amim. In what merit? Beginning with a beis, ending in a chaf. If we could go back for a moment to the previous pasuk, that pasuk begins with a vav, ends with a chaf. Va'ahevacha begins with a vav. Pasuk Yud Gimel begins with a vav. It ends with a chaf. Just like the pasuk of v'yiten lecha, the bracha that Yitzchak gave Yaakov begins with a vav and ends in a chaf, indicating that the brachos that Yitzchak gave to Yaakov will be repeated again. We now go on to an amazing gematria. The pasuk says, "Lo yiheh becha." There will not be in you akar, an impotent person, akara, or a barren woman, uviv hemtecha, among your animals. It says about Haturim, "Lo yiheh becha akar va'akara." This is begematria, bedivrei Torah. Do not be barren in words of Torah. Now, what does that mean, do not be barren in words of Torah? We know what it means physically. It's a great bracha for a person to have fertility, to be able to have children. What does it mean, do not be barren in terms of Torah? But this is explained as follows, that the same way, and the Malbim speaks about this in a number of places in Parshas Noach, the same way a person physically reproduces, their mind also should constantly be innovating and creating new Torah concepts and ideas, and they should not be sterile when it comes to Torah. One should not say, well, I already had good chidushim when I was a bachur learning in yeshiva, or when I was a young man. One's mind should constantly be alert and active to create new Torah ideas. In fact, the Bnei Yissaschar wrote a sefer of the Ta'amei HaMitzvahs, as a Sefer HaMitzvahs, how one fulfills all dimensions of mitzvahs, not just physically, but Kabbalistically as well. And the Derech Pikudecha of the Bnei Yissaschar, on the Mitzvah Puravu, he writes, Lifrois v'lirbois b'Torah, to procreate when it comes to Torah, lahoylid, to give birth, b'chol pam, at all times, sichliyos chadashim, to new ideas, b'Torah, and this is part of the Mitzvah Puravu. In fact, in Shalsa Chuvas Afar Kisasa Da'anya of Rav David Baruch Koloinimus Sperber, in Siman Beis, he brings, the Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin Sadi Alpha and Beis, that one who refrains from teaching Torah Even the embryos in their mother's womb curse such a person. What do the embryos in a mother's womb have to do with somebody who doesn't teach Torah? The answer is, as we are enjoined not only to procreate physically, but to procreate spiritually with new Torah ideas. Therefore, if someone does not constantly teach Torah, the embryos are saying you're withholding new creations from coming into the world, and they will curse such a person. We move on to offering number 5, Parag Yud Zayin, Pasuk Yotes. Hamasois hagedolos asharau einecha. The great signs that your eyes saw. The signs and the wonders. The strong hand and the outstretched arm. This is referring to the miracles of Yitzias Mitzrayim. The Haturim points out the entire Aleph Beis appears in this pasuk with the exception of the letter Beis, indicating that which the Navi Micha teaches us. Ki meitzescha me'eretz Mitzrayim arenu nifla'is. As I took you out of Egypt, I will perform miracles for you. In other words, the miracles of Yitzias Mitzrayim will have another round to them. Another round ba'achris hayamim. And therefore, this is indicated by the absence of the letter Beis, that these miracles will repeat themselves again. We move on to offering number 6, Parak Zayin, Pasuk Chaf Aleph. Lo yisa'aroitz mipneihem ki Hashem Elokecha b'kirbecha el gadol v'noira. Hashem is in your midst, a great and awesome God. What happened to Gibar? We say Gadol, we say Noira. Gadol corresponds to Avraham, as the Navi calls Avraham. Ha'adam ha'gadol ba'anakim. Also Gedula is refers to Chesed. That's the midah of Avraham. Noira is connected Yaakov, as Yaakov said, Ma Noira ha'makom hazeh. Why not Hakel ha'gadol ha'gibar v'ha'noira? What happened to Gevura? Says the Baal Haturim, because this is referring to fighting the nations who are living in Israel. Avraham, we find, fought in Milchama against the 4 kings. Yaakov fought against Lavan and Esav, but we don't find Yitzchak ever going to battle, and therefore in the context of Milchama, we only say Gadol v'Noira, referring to Avraham and Yaakov Avinu. Parak Ches, Pasuk Gimel. Vaya'anecha, vayarivecha, he afflicted you and he starved you. Vaya'achilcha es haman, he fed you the man. And in the context of the man, it says l'man hoidi'acha, to make known to you. This, says the Baal Haturim, teaches us that which the Zohar teaches, that by eating man, it gives a person deya. Likewise, Ezra says in Sefer Nehemiah, Umancha nasata lohem lahaskilam. Man you gave to them to make them have greater insight. This is what the Mechilta means. Lo nitna Torah ela la'ochlei haman. The Torah was only given to those who consumed the man. The man prepared the Jewish people. It gave them deeper comprehension and a more elevated insight into the Torah. Lo nitna Torah ela la'ochlei haman vayachilcha es haman laman hoidiacha. Offering number 8, Parak Ches, Pasuk Dalet. Simlasecha loivalsa me'alecha v'raglecha loivatseka ze arba'im shana. Your clothing did not wear out, your feet did not swell for these 40 years. Says the Baal Haturim, and juxtaposed to that is v'yadata, you should know. 40 years, you should know. This is a remez to that which the Gemara in Avodah Zarah says on Hamid Beis, that until 40 years old, a person doesn't understand the teaching of their Rebbe. Likewise, in Perkei Avos it says, Ben Arba'im Lebina, or Ulevavai Yavin, your heart will understand. The word Levavai is Gematria 40. Likewise, just like the heart is in middle of the body, the letter Mem is in middle of the Hebrew alphabet. You can say, what? There are 22 letters, so Chaf is the 11th letter, and Lamed is the 12th letter, so how is Mem in the middle? The answer is using all the menatzbach, the final letters. So the Yud is 10, and Chaf is 11, final Chaf is 12, Lamed is 13, Mem is 14. Perfectly in the middle, there are 27 letters of the alphabet with all the final letters. We go on to Parak Ches Pasuk Vav, where God commands us, Laleches b'drachav, to go in His ways. Here is a surprising way to walk in the ways of Hashem. It says about Haturim, Laleches b'drachav, is Gematria Lilmai Torah, to learn Torah. How is learning Torah walking in the ways of God? The Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, amazingly, Gimel Amid Beis, that the first 3 hours of the day Hashem spends learning Torah. So this is a new dimension of learning. Learning Torah is a manner of walking in the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Parak Ches, Pasuk Ches. Eretz chita u'se'ira v'gefen u'se'ena v'rimoin eretz zei shemen u'dvash. This pasuk has 10 words. Therefore, we put our 10 fingers on the challah. Also, there are 10 mitzvahs associated with pas. Don't plow, don't plant klayim. Leket shikchapeya, don't muzzle your donkey. Truma, meiser rishon, meiser sheni, and challah. So, a remes to the 10 halachos relevant to bread are, we put the 10 fingers on the challah. That is why it is recommended not to have your challah in a bag or in silver foil, to have your actual 10 fingers on the challah when you make hamaitzi. Offering number 11. V'yachalta v'savata, v'yachalta v'savata, v'veirachta. And then it says, Hisham lecha, be careful, pen tishkach es Hashem. Don't forget God. Because when you eat, you could forget God. How will you remember God? You'll think about the day of death. That will help you remember Hashem. Says the Haturim, juxtaposed to you should eat and be satisfied is don't forget Hashem. From here we learn you should remember the Yom HaMisa and benching. That is why Chazal were masake in a bracha of Hatov v'Hametiv, to remember those who were slain in Beitar, who were buried in Berchas HaMazon. What in the world are we remembering people who are buried in Berchas HaMazon? You just had a nice sandwich. Why spoil the outlook? The answer is because we have to be careful not to forget about Hashem when we eat. And the way we rectify that is by thinking about the Yom HaMisa. And therefore it is appropriate to think about the Harugei Beitar in the context of Achila. And then finally, the final and 12th offering, V'yachalta, you should eat. How much does one eat to be chayiv in Berchas HaMazon? V'yachalta is Gematria Zehu B'Kezayis. The Shiur Achila is Kezayis. Well, Marv Rabbi 12 amazing offerings of the Haturim, Parshas Eikev, wishing everyone an amazing week. Haba Aleinu L'Tov, an amazing Shabbos. Bracha B'Atzlacha, V'chol Tov, Salah.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.